Today in the session, we will be briefly talking about, again, I will not be able to cover a lot of this, but we will be touching upon on these points. So we will talk about what the astrology is, high level. We'll look into the static promises and the dynamic promises of the horoscope, what horoscope is all about. When it comes to the birth time, people, I have often seen is when the people see their birth details and they see the horoscope, they are not able to relate what exactly it is. So we can talk a little bit about that. We can talk about what do you mean by the cosmic energy, how this Saktish actually get origin. Okay, what is a connection with the universe? We see. Also understanding what does this planet really represent in our life. Okay, how can we connect to them? Are they cosmic energy, or they are the body which is existing? It's like, you are seeing with your eyes, it exists, but how it is connecting in the people's life. Also talking briefly about, not as a knowledge which we transfer in our Jyotish courses about rashis and houses, but even knowing, in a layman term, what dasha means, what the prashna is all about. Also, how we can apply this particular knowledge in our life. What is the descriptive and the predictive part of the astrology which we talk about is also where the art and the science of the astrology comes into. We'll try to look into some of those as well. As I'm going further, it's a close-knit team. We can always just stop me and ask your question, or add the comment over there. It's all welcome. Moving on. So when it comes to the knowing the astrology, I say, as an astrologer, we understand the language of these heavenly bodies. Okay? So what heavenly bodies I am referring to? I am referring to the no grahas around us and how they influence our life, and the astrology about scientific study and the application of this particular, I will say, heavenly body, and understanding their language is what we are talking about. And even how they are placed into the positions of the universe is also how they influence us. If they are stars, how they are going to affect us. If they are taragrahas, we are talking about, then how they influence us. If they are shadow planets, how they influence us. So their disposition and variation, in terms of how big they are, how small they are, how bright they are, how new they are, it's going to really influence overall our life, is what we are talking about. And these kind of correlation, this kind of understanding, an astrologer can understand while understanding what this heavenly body is trying to tell us. So let's understand from the angle of the law of karmas and the theory. So very basic question comes, when we are looking into an horoscope, what is there in it for the people to look into? Okay, so let's put it in a word. It has some karmas or the blueprints of the person's life. So where it is coming from, where it is going to go, how it is going to affect person's life. Okay, so as also we say, this particular knowledge is coming from the Hindu astrology. So we believe in this law of karmas. So if there are positions aligned, they are going to give you the effect of the karmas which is there in the store for you. Okay, that is where I will talk about the word called graha. Okay, so the graha has another word. Sanchit karmas are there. It has a composition of all the karmas there in a specific way to be able to influence you. And as very nicely the Batul talked about, how the Saturn dasha is coming, is going on. So we can just also relate to that, saying how those karmas related near to the Saturn energies is there, and how they affect people's life as well. And so we say it, every action has opposite reaction. So if there are, say, karmas are there and affecting you, it's affecting because it has something had happened in the past. It has a reaction of that. Okay? So I will just not get bothered, remove this part out of me. Moving on. So when it comes to Jyotish, people often confused what where it is coming from. Does it have a correlation to the Shastra? Why should we learn this? Okay, why it is called an organ of Vedas? Okay, what is there in the Vedas? So when we look and understand the Jyotish itself, it has, so we talk about all of this and then we say Jyotish is also Vedanga. It's one of the organs. I'm not getting into Siksha, Chand, Nirukta, and the Kapha. I'm not getting into all of that. Primarily, you know, it means that when somebody is born, you have to know the words and then you have to know the syllable and then you have to know the words and then you have to put the padas together and then you will understand, then you know how to pronounce, and then comes even the astrology, and that becomes the eyes of the Vedas. Put it this way, is when you want to learn something, many a time people come, I want to learn Shastras. Okay, then we say, you learn Jyotish. Then say, why learn Jyotish? The question is, it becomes an eyes. If you do not know some aspect of this, you will be not be able to complete the knowledge of the Vedas, which you would like to really know. So that's why it has given the importance of the eyes of Vedas. One more thing would like to add over here. With the knowledge of astrology, people does develop a capacity to become a word called Trikaldarshi. Okay. Question is, does everybody become a Trikaldarshi? No. It all depends upon the person itself, meditative practices, prayers, intuitive sense. So there are multiple aspects is needed for an astrologer to become a Trikaldarshi. While can this knowledge take you towards and give you a capacity to see the past, present, and future, what that Trikaldarshi is all about? Yes, it does give us that practices, and Shastras does talk about these things, what all are the qualities of an astrologer to become one of that. Moving on. So very important question. People keep asking me how much we look into astronomy into our Jyotish. Okay. So let's just differentiate this over here. When we are talking about planets, we don't go and try to understand the planet in terms of what material it has, how closely we are looking into, how far it is from here, does that impact us? Our part, I mean the astrologer in a Jyotish, when we look into the Jyotish, we look into the Palit part of the Jyotish. Okay, the part which is seen and which is mapped in the horoscope is how we are looking into. We are more worried about the divine and the cosmic energy which is coming from the grahas and how much of an impact it has. We are not worried about and getting into like an astronomer in that area. That's called the Ganit part of it. We does utilize it to some extent, but we leave it over there. And moving into the areas within Palit, there are multiple areas which we look into, is again the Jatak part, the Prashna. Prashna is nothing but asking a question and getting the answer from the cosmic. Again, Muhurt, finding the right events for people. And even the other, the Samhita part, which we look into Jyotish, that part is more about the natural phenomena which comes, and how we can also detect that. Again, in the Samhita part, overall This is how the Jyotish has been utilized at in the ancient time, when which direction a king has to move. Accordingly, they will talk. They wanted to know, and be one of the royal astrologer will give the answers for, is how. And it also has a very good application even now in the Jyotish. One part would like to talk about, when we are taking into consideration what is horoscope and how it got originated. So I will be touching upon this, bringing it from the astronomy part pretty soon, and bringing you how the zodiac belt is all about, and what rishis has seen and how they have defined it at this stage, giving you some of the names, how the people have defined us. So as you see, Parashtri system, Gemini system, Tajik system, and all that. So let me just talk about this more, as the Rishi Prashra has given us a system. Okay. So the Parashra Rishi, whatever the Parashra Rishi has got it from the Lord Brahma, has written it in its own classic text called Brihad Parashra Hora Sastra. And when we are looking into the Brihad Parashra Hora Sastra, and that particular technique of knowing Jyotish is called Parashari system. It's a comprehensive way of learning Jyotish. Again, Gemini is again another rishi has given us that knowledge, and we again combine that for a better prediction. Same comes with the Tajik and the Nadis. In the Nadis and the Tajik, when we are getting into, we are applying that into different areas. It's coming from some of the Shastras. Okay. So this part, when we are trying to get into, so I will not get a lot into details of this one. Just wanted to give you a gist of this one. Is people often ask this question: I am born this, not this date. Okay? How you are making my horoscope using that? And if somebody is born within 2 hours from there, how that the horoscope or the life event of that person is very different from what I am saying. Okay? So then we try to go back and try to tell you how, where we are existing. Okay, what is the interconnection which we are having with the universe at that time, and how we are plotting into our horoscope. It's a not, I will say, a easy answer can be given, while I will do my justice in terms of a layman language for this one. So you understand Earth pretty well. Okay, it goes from the west to east on its own axis. Okay, it has a north pole, it has a south pole. I will be showing you the picture on the next page. Let's moving on, and you know what is called equator. Okay, exactly in the middle, the 0 degree of the latitude. Now, so this is just a graphical representation of what I said. Earth tilted with the north and the south pole. Equator exactly in the middle, where you see latitude, and we also see a longitude. Okay. When somebody is born at some specific place, okay, understanding where the person is born, we calculate what was the astronomical placement of Navagrahas seen from that place. Okay. Calculation of the longitude and the latitude over here, you can understand this more as a graph x and y axis. Okay. Is calculated. Based on that, we see what is rising in east. That gives us the ascendant, so-called lagna. Okay. We will assimilate this like couple of times, so that will give you an answer. So we calculate this latitude and longitude. For that native, look into the rising sign in the east. So you understand, when we are looking into Earth, we have east, west, north, south. So whatever comes in the east get mapped into the rising sign. Then similarly, we move on the horoscope. Now the question is, we have 24 hours, right? And the earth is moving 360-degree on its own axis from west to east. And within, to be able to complete this 360 degrees, how much time gets spanned? 24 hours. So that means within 24 hours, earth is moving this axis. That means is changing some placement every 30 degree, right? 30. So what we are basically talking about is like in every 2 hours, if you relate this to every 2 hours, there is a change into one part. Okay, so this 12 parts, and which we define it more as a zodiac belt around it, that zodiac belt get divided into 12 parts, which is of 30 degree each. That makes, and there is a change happening, like, on the east side, sometime you see a rising sign of one zodiac sign, then another zodiac signs. In a simple word, you can see every 2 hours there is a change in the sign. So if somebody is born 12 a.m. in the night and somebody else is born at 2 a.m., again it's approximately 2 a.m., will have a different sign rising in their east. Okay, and that makes a big difference. Also, when it comes to timings, I'm not going to, I'm talking about the Varga charts and all that. While when you are getting into the time change, okay, that affects some of the other impact. It also looks into the nakshatra part, which we will again look very closely into when we are dividing this zodiac belt into 12 parts. We are talking about sign. The same zodiac belt can be divided into 27 parts, and that 27 parts is, each part represent one nakshatra. Okay, so again, it's little good amount of concept over here. You can ask questions at end while I am trying to relate you where you are born on the earth, what is your birth time, and what we are seeing in the horoscope, and how it is mapped from the time to the place you are born, and what an astrologer is going to see. Okay? Moving on. Okay, so when we are moving on and trying to make you understand about the cosmic energy and the origin, so again, when you'll be looking into this one, you will say this is more, we are talking about what we learn in yoga. Okay, so everything, either any, all different kind of ancient science always talk about these shaktis and these energies. Like we talk about how uh, Shri Shakti is the word which is used, and how this with the Sattva Guna part, when it is how it combined with the God energy, leads to how it rules the whole world. When the same energy gets coupled with, say, Bhu Shakti is nothing but is the Rajoguna part which is coming from the Mother Earth, leads to the Brahma creation. Okay, so Brahma, which is going to create the universe. Okay, at the same time, when the God energy comes with the Nila Shakti, that comes the Tamoguna part of the Nila Shakti comes into this, and these energies are called Shiva, and that destroys the universe as well with the energy of Tamoguna. And the combination of this exist in all being. So some of the devis beings have higher component of satoguna, some has a higher component of rajoguna, and a higher component of tamoguna, depending upon the proposition of it, makes how they behave into their life. Okay, there will be coming a very big correlation, as we are moving on, while just giving you a concept of this part at this stage, if you are not aware about this one. One more concept I wanted to add over here when we talk about cosmic energy. So when we are talking about cosmic energy, we also want to talk about the Lord is in all being and the entire universe is in him. The statement of this comes from our Shastras, and it talks about that how the being, okay, I'm not using a word human being, I'm talking about beings, has a component of Lord everywhere. So now the question is, what is the proportion of it? Okay. So, and whom should we worship, whom we should not worship? How does it go about looking into? So some of the being has a predominance of Paramatma Ansh, the word which we talk about. Some of the component has a Jivatma a lot. So now how they are different. The component of the Jivatma makes a being mortal, specific time frame. Paramatma Ans, higher Paramatma Ans, makes a being immortal. Okay. Then now as we are talking about these powers of like Jivatma and Paramatma Ans, when we are talking about relating it to our Navgrahas, it is considered that the incarnation of Vishnu is the unborn being, and the incarnation of the Vishnu are these Navgrahas. They are not born, so they are not getting worshipped like Rama, Krishna, or Narsimha. Uh, while there are many incarnation of Vishnu, which is not has been done, has been created for a specific reason behind that, and that is what I mentioned, the word called grahas. So when I say grahas, it has a store of the karmas within that. Okay. So this is what even I'm trying to relate it to the cosmic energy and the deity part of it, and talking about and where this knowledge is actually coming from, and is coming from our Shastras and the Vedas and the Rishis. Parashara has in the beginning of the Brihat Parashara Horasas, it talked very clearly about it, how important it is and why you should be studying that, what Navagraha is all about, what powers it has, what forms it takes, and the powers in terms of how it can destroy the demons as well as can sustain the divine being, is what the power and the auspicious form has been given to this Navagraha. So in a way you can say, why should I worship and rather care about these Navagrahas? This question, and especially in the modern life, people says, what's the point? Why should I worship it? The grahas are so far away from me. Does it going to impact me? Okay, and if it is impacts, if I'm doing some prayers, is it going to look into those ones? So we are saying yes, it does. And we will be getting into those discussion, taking those questions as well as we are moving on. Okay? In the world of Jyotish, what we talk about is how the 9 forms of 9 incarnation form of the Vishnu relates to our Navgrahas. Okay, so we relate the, and again, indications given from our Shastras saying, and this is how you can also see at multiple of the books and the stories which you will look into. So sun has been related to Rama, moon Krishna. Again, and even in the books you will find it written, sun like Suryavanshi came from there. So the way you can relate in is the qualities which a sun is having, or the qualities which Ram is having, is coming into the coming from the energies of the sun, and how they are relating into the form of the Ram as well. So not getting a lot into details, but this is a very important component for us, and it becomes a guideline or the line for us to be able to understand those characteristics in the world of Jyotish. Like, let me move on to some of those grahas, which are not the real grahas, called shadow planets. It's called Rahu and Ketu. So the Rahu, the energy of it is relating it to the Brahas, incarnation of Vishnu. So one part to be remembered, the Navgraha are divine. Okay, they have the energy and the cosmic energy of the Lord Vishnu. Okay, energies once created, they do not get destroyed. They are always existing in the life. Okay, so they are relating in terms of similarities of the energies. Okay, is how we are looking into. Also, you can relate, like say, a Jupiter with the Vamna. Okay, so it was a Vamna which is born with the energy of the wisdom. It has that intelligence and the wisdom which was not there in any of the other incarnation of them. Again, Mercury, Buddha, is how it relates to. Now, and this is kind of a no-brainer for the people who know and understand the Jyotish, in terms of like even looking into Mars and saying that the energy of the Narasimha comes into that, the aggression, the strength, which comes, you can relate to the Narasimha, with the energy it comes into. It also gets you to be able to understand the story behind this particular stuff. Okay, so the story behind Narasimha is what we are talking about. That also talks a lot about the energy which is coming in the people's life when somebody has a very strong Mars. Astrologer is watching, and then how it relates in the people's life. Okay, so this part I am pretty much skipping to some extent, other than just talking about, and I have actually talked about on this one, saying that the grahas are seen more as a divine entity, and it has a significant influence on the human life and the destiny of a person. Okay, and what all impact, what influences it has, we will be talking very shortly about. Uh, Moving on, so when it comes to us, so I'm not getting a lot, again, not a lot into that, while very briefly talk about when we say, there are grahas, they are relating to the people's life, so there should be some connection between those two. So making this connection, we are talking about the how the sun relates to a soul of a person, moon affects the mind, Mars gives the energy and the strength to move forward. When it comes to Mercury, it's his speech and the communication. So this is more of a language of a people who is understanding that language and be able to make predictions about it. While even a layman person coming for the consultation should be knowing, even in I will say in a simple terms, what does this energies actually mean. Okay, and otherwise you do not understand on what basis an astrologer is giving you what it is in your horoscope. So it's important to even know on a high level what exactly this is. So moving on and talking about, like, when we are talking about Jupiter, or strong Jupiter, and we relate the knowledge of the Jupiter to more towards the wisdom and the knowledge which are potentially there in the person's life. For example, if the Jupiter is, like, say, a low in or weak in the person's life, so what happens is the component of the knowledge is, I will say, less. Okay, so the wisdom is not, like, in a way, not getting absorbed to be able to make more into their life, as compared to a person which has a very strong Jupiter and also positioned well in the chart. Venus energy, it says a lot of feminine energy we talk about, but in the Shastras it has written, said the semen is how the Shukra is the word if we talk about, is how it relates to. So it relates to a lot about the beauty and the love and the romance comes from the Venus, and there are multiple more in the professional astrology world. When it comes to Venus, we can lay down like 25 meanings and how it relates in the paper. Saturn is, when we move to the Saturn area, we start with this discipline, hard work, while we relate it to grief. Okay? So grief, depression, why we talk about this, is one of the time when the Saturn energy is coming, we do see a word like hanging on there, primarily because it does affect, because in a way they are teaching you some lessons which should be accepted it. Okay, and while teaching the lessons, you don't like to be, like, being unhappy, because it's like, it has to be following some kind of teaching the responsibility for the people, being the disciplined, and it's, in a way, it's the own karmas which is coming in a hard way for people, but acceptance takes a while, and higher the people accept, better is they navigate through their life through that way. Now, when it comes to, again, there are times people go through a time of Rahu and talks about, you know, now some of the desires of the people really comes out. So, there is a big correlation between Rahu and the desires coming into their life. And also the other part is the Ketu. When the Ketu part it comes into, it's called detachment, and the spirituality, it becomes a bigger part of the people's life. So it relates to the detachment in the people's life. Okay. So now, as we are moving on, so I'm trying to simplify at these stages now. So when it comes to simplifying those, the birth chart, lagna, nakshatras, transit, and these are the, and we will be happy to even, start to take some of the questions from people, if you want me to stop and say that, yes, I have a question over there. So I will be happy to take even those. So what I'm trying to say over here is, in the world of astrology, and I've already touched upon on those ones too, it's a study of these uh, the celestial bodies we are talking about, navagrahas. And we have a component of 9 grahas, and namely, starting with 2 luminaries of the sun and the moon. Then we have 5, we say a word called tara graha, we can say it 5 planets, which you can also see very easy way of understanding. So our ancient the rishis were very smart in bringing these things in as a part of our life. So you can see our the days of week. Okay, so in English it becomes slightly different, while in Hindi, if you say it, Ravivar, Somvar, Mangalvar. So emphasis on the first word, Ravi, sun, Ravivar, Somvar, Mangalvar, uh, then Budhvar, Brihaspatvar, Shukravar, Shanivar, and again Ravivar. Okay, so take the first words and you will see how the Ravivar relates to the sun, and then Somvar to the moon, and then Mangalvar to the Mars energy. And again, there is a color of this, and this is very nicely put together for the people to also wear dresses accordingly to relate to the energy of these grahas. And it's more you dig further, more you get to know how, I will say, the ancient wisdom, how they have tried to relate in the people's life over here. And, how even unknowingly you are remembering those energies in your life. So this is the ninth planet, and the two planet, like after this 7 week days, there is two planet left, which is called Rahu and Ketu. They are actually not existing. They are more of a shadow planets, and they show their light when it is needed in the people's life. While they are existing, they are imaginary, but they are existing somewhere. You can see. Okay, and when they really come, and that's the time we talk about the solar or the lunar eclipse part comes into the picture. So moving on to and talking about, so we as the astrologers, we look into the 9 planets, 12 rashis, 12 bhavas. Okay, so now again relating it to a simple terms, uh, different characteristic of this science has, and these combination, permutation and combination of this makes the uniqueness of individuals. Okay, so now you can make, if you are a mathematician, you can look into like 9 planets, 12 rashis, 12 bhavas, and then comes their position and their combination together, 2 together, 3 together, and how they are looking into each other, because you understand the interconnection of these planets. And when 2 is together, how they form something called yogas, and then they get into the people's life. And given all of that, then you can see how the uniqueness of natives comes into of a whole combination what comes in the people's life. uh, so I mean, now you can see there are billions of people all over the place, and we have only 9 grahas. Okay, we have only 12 rashis to divide them, and then only 12 bhavas to be able to look into. So given that how we are like all different from each other, so you can understand with the combination. Other thing we would like to again also talk about is the bhavas itself. Okay, I will show you a chart as well, to just give you a component of understanding of how different astrologists, what they see from their angle, and how that relates to the person's personality. Okay, so I'm not teaching and making you understand what exactly it is there, but having an understanding of on a high level also helps you what other person is seeing, while making to understand the native itself, native, the person whose horoscope we are trying to look into and trying to understand what's going to come in the person's life. So different powers, different houses. So overall, 12 houses we have has a full of meaning within that. Okay, in a North Indian way, when there are different kind of horoscope, one is called North Indian style, the other called South Indian style. When you are looking through a North Indian style chart, you start to read it from the anti-clockwise, from the left to right. You start to look into. So then you count it, that in the first house it talks about personality, what all multiple things we look into the first house. And as we are moving on to the other houses, we look into the different aspects aspect of people's life. Okay, some of the places we say it's an auspicious location of the planet. If they are located over there, that means the destiny is defined in a very good way. Okay, or good planet, good position, awesome. Okay, at the same time, and a positive location when we are talking about, and a bright planet, okay, into a position which is going to be, so that the planet can show the whole energy with, like, it really can show up the whatever the, I will say, is there in the store for the person. So given that, we really become excited to look into what that particular planet can show in the time. And then also, looking into when that particular, say, a good planet time is going to come, and then we relate it to dashas. Of dashas are nothing but different time frames of a particular planet going to come in your life. At that point of time, that particular planet will be given an opportunity to give what they have brought, in a way you can say, into their bag of the gifts for you, will be shown. Okay, so that's how, as you have seen, the people's life changes as their life moves on. And for us, it is all visible. So even looking into a, a boy which is born, or looking into the person who is into their 50s, you can really make it out. Even without even knowing anything about the person, you can know and navigate and understand the person's life kind of equally good. Doesn't matter the person is just born or the person is in the 50s. So this is nothing but a power, what we are talking about, of this divine being. Moving on, talking a little bit about, as we have already touched upon, the horoscope. Okay, so horoscope is nothing but we are talking about when we are trying to understand. Okay, so when a person is born, what is the map of this position of the planet, which Rashi, particular Rashi a planet is moving into, and how it is there in the first house or second house. Given that, we make a horoscope. Okay, so as I explained in the beginning, looking into the planetary and the astronomical position, doing the calculation of a latitude and the longitude, we map that planets on our horoscope. So once the horoscope is built, it's like having the code word in front of an astrologer is visible. Now, we can read the whole life of a person. Okay, we doesn't open up and try to, like, talk about everything about the person, while provided the person has a particular question. So there should be a seriousness in knowing what you want to know. And very recently somebody asking me question, it is really important for me to know this, what's there in the store for me. It's like, it's optional. If you want to know, no. You do not to know, do not know. What we want to say is, we have the knowledge. If you want to know, if that helps you in navigating your life better, we have the answers for you. So we get to know in the mapping of the astronomical planets and their positions into the horoscope. That also determines what's going to be there in the rising sign, in the east side of a horoscope. The east side determines our ascendant, our lagna, okay, at the time of the birth. And the lagna becomes one of the very important component. If you ever come across and gone to an astrologer where he talks about, wow, what a lagna. Okay, so lagna talks a lot about a personality and the appearance of a person. We also can relate to that. Like there are times I was giving an example to people, and I can take it over here as well, is say a moon is sitting with Jupiter in the person's life in the Lagna chart. Okay. And say it is sitting in the it's really exalted over there, and it relates. So, and if it's there in the rising sign, it, if I see a person, will be able to even relate and be visible on his face what is there. Okay. And in the terms of the astrologers, when I said exalted Jupiter sitting with the moon, sitting in the first house, people say exciting. Okay, because the exalted Jupiter sitting with a good planet is making a good yoga, and if there is an aspect of Venus, then it's becoming a Gajakesari yoga, and that is visible on the person's face, and it's also doing all kind of Mahapurush and Hamsha Mahapurush yoga. So now let me relate it to how in the past when the rishis used to look into somebody and says, look at this person, and say, that's a guy with a Hamsa Yoga. Okay. So face is also written in the Shastras how that personality will look like. And with the grace on the face being that. And people used to also recognize this. Also, let me relate it to the face reading part. Okay. So there are times people say this a particular astrologer can really read the face. So is that one of the tool and the technique astrologers have? Yes, they can. Okay. What is the capability of this one? And what I'm trying to give you the answers to is, it's not, everything is not magical and mystical. There is a science behind it. There is a calculation which is done. Okay. So it's not that if somebody can do and really have a divine power and it's helping. Divine power get developed over time, while there is a science behind that to be able to know that knowledge. Okay. And who has given us this science? It came from the Shastras, and that is where you cannot negate it, that it doesn't exist. It exists. You believe or you doesn't believe is completely a belief system from a person, but it exists, and we cannot deny the fact that it's not there. Okay. Moving on to this question again comes quite often in the people's life is nakshatra. What is nakshatra? Sometimes you go to temples and the people ask you a question that, okay, so what is your nakshatra? So very important to know the nakshatra, as I talked about, you stand in wherever you are standing, you just stand over there. These days, you can also use some of your mobile apps, and you can look into the zodiac belt. This is how rishis used to see the sky. So when you are looking into the sky, you will be able to see the most visible belt of from any place of the earth is this zodiac belt, where you can really see the sequence of all of these planets moving from one place to another place depending upon the day and the time. Some of the planets are moving faster, some of the planets are moving slower, doing their own, I will say, the revolving around their own orbit over there. So when this zodiac belt is get divided into 27 parts, so that one particular part is where you see the moon coming. That becomes a moon nakshatra at the time of the person is born, becomes your own nakshatra. So I mean, other words, where the moon was existing in your nakshatra when you are born, that defines your own nakshatra. Okay, so the moon. Another word of also saying that this nakshatra part is, it's like, always our rishi used to relate these knowledge with the stories. Okay, so that helps them remembering things. So people talk about how moon has 27 lunar mansions. Okay, so like kind of a castle he has, and also says like 27 wives. And when it moves, and every day it tries to move from the one place to another place, another nakshatra, and as it is moving, and moon is one of the fastest moving planet, and as that days used to get defined, is how it is also seen. And it has a significant, the nakshatra of the moon nakshatra, as we are talking about, it has a significant impact, and which is also a unique component of, and that also divides us from a Western astrology to a Hindu astrology or a Vedic astrology, is the nakshatra. In the Western, we do not see a nakshatra coming. So the granular, I will say, a knowledge which is coming from there is missing into the other parts, and that also makes a Vedic astrologers, they can predict, I will say, better, in some of the aspects of the people's life. Now, one part which people often ask questions about, and that makes, and as I told also in the beginning, we look into static component and a dynamic component. Okay. So when I say static component and a dynamic component, when somebody is born at that point of time, static, at that time, you see a horoscope. Okay. So whatever, say somebody is born in 70s. Okay. So in 70s, one particular day in August 1980, the person is born on say 30th August this. So you are seeing that while when the grahas, as we are talking about, they are moving. Okay. So when they are moving, that brings the dynamism into the chart, the horoscope, which is done at one point of time. Okay. So I mean to say, we as the astrologer also look into this transit, keep looking into from where, or rather you put it this way, you track it. Okay. That helps in making a better prediction, better understanding of the time coming in. Okay. So different energies brings a different grahas bring a different energies at that point of time. Okay. And that is what we are trying to even talk about when we are talking about the transit part of planets. Okay. Not talking a lot about it, becomes slightly more complex than how it is visible. But as I'm holding on to talk about the astronomy, where I said that the planet moves from one zodiac sign to the another zodiac sign, and also I can take one of the example over here. In January, we do, and our festival has a lot to do with all of these transits. So in January, we do a celebration for something called Makar Sankranti. Okay. So what is the Makar Sankranti is all about? Makar Sankranti is, the Makar word is the Sanskrit word for Capricorn. When the sun moves into the Rashi of Makar, the Capricorn, that's the time we are doing. The Sankranti is nothing but when the sun is moving its sign. Okay, so that's called the Sankranti. So the Makar Sankranti, which moves into the Capricorn sign, that's where the celebration happens. And that celebration has a high impact. Okay. So when we say high impact, going back, when we talk about sun, relating it as a soul. Okay. So when we are talking this, and you can also understand in the world of universe, sun, it becomes a soul for the universe. Okay. And the same sun is becoming a soul for the horoscope in which we are talking about. Okay. So when it is moving from one place to another place, okay, it becomes a very auspicious moment for multiple reasons. It also become a very auspicious in terms of doing your meditative practices. The power is high on those days, and you can do your meditative practices for more effect of what you want to do in the life. That's what the Sankranti is all about. Just wanted to give you an example of the transit. Okay, moving on. Now, at this point of time, we are just again relating it to coming to what this divine energy is, and why should we worship grahas. Okay, so when we are talking about grahas, there is a connection, okay, which we have with this divine energy. Okay, and when you are seeking a blessing from them, okay, you try to connect to them. How do you connect? Again, there is a wireless connection which is already there. While when you are, say, holding hands and being polite, when you are talking to these energies and the seeking blessings, they're going to help you in your, removing some of the negative effect of those grahas. Okay, in a way, bowing down to this grahas is what we are talking. Okay. Putting into again a question comes, why do we perform a ritual? Okay, doing the prayers to these planets going to help? Yes, it will. Okay, but how is it going to? Is it very scientific to be able to understand this? Yes. Okay, do you like when somebody's come in front of you and, like, say, your child, and is saying, please, can you please help me? Then you get up and just go ahead and do it. Okay, so I mean to say, when there are ways to be able to connect to these energies, you do, and you must have seen that, and try to bring a picture of the homas and how the homas performing these mantras has a wireless connection to the universe. Okay, and the connection which a human being has to the cosmic energies, and there are multiple ways of defining in the yogas as well, that where the connection is, where the intention is, how yogis are different from the rest of the people, how they are connecting, how their software get upgraded and downgraded in the night time. So it's so those things, as you are trying to relate, so there is a connection in terms of what you are performing, your prayers and the mantras, and how they are relating, while saying that how much of an effect it has. Okay, so is it 100% guarantee that if I do a ritual, it will be come in your life? We cannot say that. Okay, how much it will have an impact, because it becomes a subjective term, looking into a horoscope, how much of a devotion is there in terms of doing that particular prayer, what impact it has, how firm is that particular karma in the person's life, that's how the impact comes. Okay, while does prayers works? Yes. Okay, worshipping divine being helps? Yes, it does help. Okay, while different person have a different impact, it depends how much you are going to do and what is there in the karmas for you. Okay, so I want to just also just like I kind of show you over here. So I'm not seeing the chat at this time while I hear the chat. So just like to just see. Okay, so we will be answering this question pretty soon. Let me just keep moving on. This is what, I mean, obviously there are multiple more tables which I'm not bringing in over here, just giving you a small snapshot of what we have been talking about, giving you a visual of that one, which astrologer is seeing, okay, in a, I will say, in a coded format in front of them, and they are talking about your life. Okay. So what we are seeing, okay, what we are talking is two different things. What we are seeing over here right now, we talked about the horoscope. So when we see this horoscope, what does that mean? Okay, these are the tables, these are the dashas which I'm showing up. So I have been always been mentioning and saying that we see Lagna as a rising sign. Astronomy in the east side when you are born, and say this particular native is born, this is a North Indian style of showing a horoscope. And this particular house is showing what is rising in the east. Okay. For example, whatever time this person is born, okay, if you say this person is born at this time, I mean, I'm talking about in the world of AI where you can ask your questions and you can say when this person is born at this time, what was rising in the east from this location. Okay. So when you do that, you get to see that this particular Mercury and Mars was visible in the Rashi of Gemini in the east side, is what you are seeing at a certain degree. Okay. So this degree is also very important, how much it has passed within that. You can understand each Rashis or this zodiac sign is having a 30 degree. So how much it has gone into from zero. So if you see a 0.5, it has just got into zero, just started getting into. When you say 15, that means it's halfway through in that particular Rashi. When it is at a 29, is that about to exit that particular Rashi away. So and then that's how you can relate. These days you can just take a mobile app, look into your sky, and you will be able to see that some sign is rising, and within that you see that particular planet either sitting exactly in the middle or at the point of exiting, is what I'm trying to relate it over here. And if you are good enough to be able to see the sky, I can give you a mobile app called Skyfall. I look into through that. You can just download that Skyfall. It's a free app. You can take that, and if you'll be able to observe and point it out towards the sky, you will be able to see Saturn is in Aquarius at this time. Okay, sitting exactly in the middle of the Aquarius right now. And that particular thing which I talked about, it becomes really an important component for us, especially as we talked about Saturn. And and you have seen when we are talking about Saturn, there is a grief. Okay. So the grief and the part which is hard master and a discipline and responsibilities which comes along with the Saturn. So when it gets into a particular I will say a Rashi, and if there is an impact on a particular horoscope, so the impact could be very high depending, okay, how it is looking into the native's exact position, or it's looking into the mind of a person. Again, not getting all the nuances of the Saturn, but I'm just trying to point it out, and that when it is coming, it's going to impact person's life. Okay. So yeah, so also gave you a concept of the houses. Okay, in a North Indian style, we talked about houses. Different houses has a different meanings into that, and that's a language of a, I will say, when I am trying to tell you the Rashis and the talking about all of this component of the houses, all different planets, what does that meaning. So we are pretty much decoding what astrologers, how they look into and trying to understand what is there. So just looking into this one, while when I have a communication with my clients, I am talking about, wow, so you are very intelligent, you can communicate it very well. Okay, so your business is looking this way or that way. While what I am seeing is what you are seeing on a screen right now is Mars is sitting in this particular house and, at this degree, while we know how to navigate through this. Okay. I will also try to tell you one more very important component is what is called a blueprint of the person. Okay. And a very important tool for an astrologer is called these dashas. Okay. So these dashas, very briefly, I talked about. Okay. And whenever you are like, having a consultation, people tell you this dasha is going on, and then this bhukti is coming, and this is going to do this or that. So the blueprint of the life, when we are talking about, that means when what is going to happen at what point of time is all written. There is a spirituality connection into that. Okay. The decision has been made, and we can become very philosophically, we can talking about this one, like a gurus and all that, when you are not even born, you are making your decision that where I want to be born, who will be my parents, how will they look like, how are they going to, whom should I choose to be, close to me, what kind of life I want to have, how I want to position my positive things or negative things. All the planning happens, it shows in your life. Okay. Person from very far away, you don't even know the person itself, while you can say that this had happened in the person's life, or is going to happen this point of time. Okay. Accuracy of this goes to an extent that astrologer can also talk about the time, date it's going to happen. Okay. The calculation, is it magical? No. The calculation, yes. Okay. What will be the accuracy of it? Depends upon the capability and the ability of a person who is giving. At the same time, there is a component of how serious is the question from a client coming. Okay. So that component you can see more as a soft part of this. Like, for example, and there is also a responsibility, and the karmas get associated with the astrologers. So, and that part, and we all talked about all these karmas and the divinity and the philosophy behind that, and these divine energies. So it's very important for an astrologer to safeguard themselves, be an yogi, be detached from the clients, I will say the personal life, do your own practices of meditation, and then bring that in the person's life as well, is how we always define and tell it to the people who are, I say at the beginning stage, do not know more about it. So we emphasize on those things a lot. Okay. Okay. Now, again, moving on. So as we are moving on to this one, now the question comes, looking into this pages and whatever we are looking through right now, how does it apply in the people's life? Okay. What you can see, and which is, and is there is any need for you to be able to study that? Okay. Can I define my destiny? Yeah. Can I know about my own personality? Most of the time we have seen people coming and learning this, is they say, I want to know, be on my own self journey. I want to understand. Self discovery journey is what I'm talking about. So while, as you go in further into, you can definitely define others' life as well. So understanding the influence of planetary position have on your life, you, while understanding that, you can gain insight first about your own personality. Okay, let me just uh, extend that. Say, knowing own personalities, we are looking into what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses in the life. Okay. For example, if somebody says, I would like to go in my life more as I want to become a sportsman. Okay. We say, let me see, is that your chart supports it? Or you say, I want to make my boy a sportsman. Okay. Now, if there is a advice, you look into the chart and say, does the chart is also supporting that? If it is, well and good. If not, the poor boy has to move into a direction of the sportsman because the parents want the person to be, while he will be able to do nothing in that day. Okay. So it's good to go in the area or the energy where you think it's actually your planets are also favoring you. That helps you. It's like if the current is going in one particular direction, if you are moving in the same direction, it's very helpful for you to be able to move. Otherwise, you have to really navigate to be able to come out. And also you will be able to know that, let's say, a potential successes in your area, either like on a career or a finance. So many a time people come just to get an advice, I am into this particular career, or you are already halfway through with your career and you are saying, is this the right career for me? Okay, so I'm not sure that the person can change the career or not, but often a time when the people are like struggling through in their career, then they start to ask this question that is that a right career for me? So best way to deal with this is when you the time to choose your career, do reach out to a person and do ask what kind of a favorable career and the profession can be chosen for that particular guy. Okay? So that will help you, give you a guidance, okay, so that you can make more informed decisions. And the career which has been chosen is going to be favorable for the person. And you see some kind of a career shift happens from a real estate, people just move and become an astrologer. From a writing, you become something else. So if you chose a right career, even from the beginning, looking into the guidance, this kind of a big dramatic shift, you will not be seeing in the person's life, and you will be passionate with what you are doing. And also the other part of which we talk about, and something called auspicious time. And I will also like to give one more example in the strength and weakness. I'll come back to that. So auspicious time, so again, this is the time, and the matching and all those becomes a very important component, and this is how it became very, very popular. That there are times which are really good for people to be able to apply in their life, like good time, and especially the auspicious times, you want to make sure that everything is favorable in that direction, especially when it comes to a marriage. Never ever we would like to see a marriage happening in a rahu kal time, and that it doesn't have a very good impact. Either a childbirth, if you can manage, or new business you are starting, you really want it to be flourish, so you want their blessing should be there from the grahas. So the time should be rightly aligned, I will say. So rightly aligned has multiple ways of simplifying it, as well as if you are very cautious, you can really look into the complete muhurt in terms of the day, time, and then you can start. Or you see, earlier, every other, I will say, even the grandmothers used to see the lunar calendar. There used to be, there is called Hindi calendar, used to be there in the house, and they know how it is. And there are times they are like completely uneducated, but they know how to look into the lunar calendar, because they can look into the sky and they can know the position of a moon and be able to make things out. Okay. But the last point I would like to add, even many a time people say that the learning the whole knowledge of astrology becomes a complete spiritual practice. Okay. So even when you go through this journey and learn the shastras and trying to apply in the people's life, the whole practice becomes a complete spiritual path for you, because you are applying it, the real uh, interconnectedness which you are seeing to things, how the person is born, what they are navigating through, what the karmas is coming, how they are going to karma. So there are so many components, and this whole practice really makes people a spiritual practice. And we also, encourage that practice. More you do, more you become a better an astrologer with the good intuitive sense, and the appreciation of this interconnectedness becomes a big thing, even when you become more of a words which we use is called holistic way of seeing things, how we are, you know we are, say, connected with each other, and also people are connected with each other, the beings are connected with each other, how the god is giving the energies, and these energies can be seen and are getting absorbed by people, is all also comes together when in the study of the whole knowledge. And that really defines overall your life events and the spiritual. So we are getting now again close to the time. We would like to open up with the question. I see a few questions over here, so we will start with those. So, Gabriel, you can really, at this point of time, now also you can open and unmute, and you can also ask your questions. Speak about the grahas that exchanging in nakshatras. Example, Jupiter in Satvisha and the Rahu in. Yeah. So, I will say that I'm not trying to get deep into these questions in terms of because the audience which we have right now is they will not be able to even understand to this extent. So I will be very happy to answer your question from outside as compared to answering it over here. We'll try to keep it very generic. Now, thank you very much for the explanation. Is it possible to have an accurate reading when the birth time is unknown? Very good question. No, it's good to know your birth time. If you have a range, okay, if we know that you are born maybe between 12 a.m. to 4 p.m. Okay, not that big a range, 2 hours, 4 hours, if we can correct it easily. Okay, so the accuracy of the prediction when it comes to birth time is a very important component. Okay, but while knowing in a range, we will be able to correct it. Prarabdha is determined how the mitigation of the negative effect through the karmanda helps in learning the life lessons this event has produced in the personal life. So, determining how it mitigates. Okay, is it legitimate to ask astrologer? Plana? Gabriel, I mean, I would like a little bit more explanation for your question. Second question.
Sure, Meenakshi. So, if certain negative events are inevitable, how would Jyotisha help in mitigating this impact if initially the event came for a person to learn a lesson?
Yes, that's a very good question. Okay. First thing I will say, astrologer doesn't have a capacity to be able to mitigate a negative. Okay. They cannot take away the karma of a native. While the person, the native itself has the power, because the native is the captain of the ship. Okay. So that person can navigate. Okay. It all depends upon, I will say, one line, how strong prayers capacity a person has. Okay, doesn't matter what is the person is doing. Okay, so only that native can remove the negative karma with whatever the astrologer is suggesting, looking into the karmas, while astrologer themselves cannot. Did I answer your question, Gabriel?
Thank you. Yes, I was looking into the remedies, but as you said, it is upon the person
The
to
person itself and the
apply itself.
intention. Yeah, and also the intention. Okay, so it doesn't matter what is the remedy is doing given. Anything, any prayer done with the strong willingness, okay, for the mitigating effect of this, it's going to have a higher impact. Okay, either the person is just chanting, say, a om, or chanting the whole mantras. If there is a good intention is there in terms of say forgiveness of, because what is the negative karmas is all about. Okay, negative karmas is like something had happened in the past is impacting you now, right? So that means something wrong has happened and it's giving you a higher impact at this time. So in even in the world of yogas we say acceptance, forgiveness, okay, is really leads you to have a lesser impact of the karmas in your life. Okay, that's also a teaching of Vedanta too, right? And I think one more question you had, Gabriel.
Is it legitimate to ask the astrology?
Yes.
How long will you live?
No, it's legitimate to ask this question to an astrologer. I will also say people should not get over hung up with that one too. Okay, but it's okay within a time frame. Okay, you cannot make a big change like when especially for the the pregnancies we are talking about at end, when this 36 month has already arrived and then the baby has to be born, right? It cannot be completely changed. The baby cannot be born in 20th week as compared to the 40th week, but it's fine to ask this question and born a baby at a certain time, because that is where you take a medical advice more than just the astrology advice. Okay, so both should go together. So more medically you should be worrying about, while there are times, say there is a really a big difference sometimes happens. This particular chart is completely not good and the other chart is very nice. For example, I can talk about there is a story around when the Ram was getting born, how Kausalya was looking into on the sky, and there was a prediction done that if that Ram is born after going to be in an afternoon, it's going to have some different kind of a chart, and it will have not have I will say that the royal kingdom, those kind of stuff which the Kaushalya was looking for. While when the Ram was born, he was born exactly in the, I think, the middle of the time as compared to being on the either early side or the middle side. So it is just that you can do what you can do. Okay, so do not people should not get hung up on that is what I'm mentioning. But it is good, it is legitimate to be able to ask this question and also turn around and be able to have a choose a chart for a child which is born. Okay. Okay. So, but if you are in a position, you can really speak up at this time. While I'm reading the question, when a Pandit ji is performing a Homa ceremony for you in India, will that affect you in US? Do you have it present in the ceremony? You have to be. Very good question. It's, I will say, you should doing your ceremony by yourself. Okay. Somebody doing for you will have an impact, but it will have a much greater impact if you do it, because it's all about understanding all the areas of the yogas, Vedanta, all of this ancient wisdom takes you more towards making you understand these karmas, making these understand these karmas more in a gracious way. And what you are talking about is when somebody is doing havan and the prayers on my behalf, is that impact is going to be there. But if the person itself is sitting down and performing, then comes this acceptance of this forgiveness, and how you are surrendering to your divine, and then saying that, please forgive me what I have done, and now give me the impact. So I highly recommend somebody sitting down and doing it himself, as compared to or also there could be another thing I will say. When those things are happening, okay, for you, there should be a connection you are trying to establish to that. Sitting down and doing your own performing stuff in US, when there is a chanting or the havan is happening in India. So in a way, you are somewhere connected. So that becomes the second best. So first best is you are performing. Second best is when it is happening, you are also connecting. Third is, okay, something had happened. So the havan even happening or the chanting happening will have to some extent will have effect.
Wow, thank you so much, Meenakshi ji. Yeah, that makes sense.
Lovely. And also, I would like to also talk about one more uh, divine remedy for everyone. Okay. In general, okay, people should feel connected to their environment. Okay. What you are getting, you should give something back to the society. Okay. So when it comes to giving back to the society, giving back to the nature, okay, accepting your life the way it is, these kind of things will make you more, I will say, mild, accepting what is coming in your life. So the way to deal with those situations are, uh, in terms of remedies, is devoting time. Okay, I'm not talking about money. Okay, time is very important, because that's the costly uh, resource which you have in your life. So take some time out and devote towards, in serving a community, serving people. Okay. So when it comes to serving people, there are the biggest karmas which you have related with your own people who are sitting down with you. Okay. So if you are serving them, you are taking away that karma from there. Okay, which is right now kind of impacting you. Okay, when it again it comes to the community, serving in the community, the impact which you have from there will also be reduced. Again, making a connection to the nature. How do you make that connection? Serve them. You take so much of things from the nature. Very simple thing which you take is you breathe in the nature, right? Every time you are taking air from there inside, and that keeping you live. So to be able to give back to the nature, okay, planting, gardening is also a way you are giving a pure clean energy back, is also an important part. Then serving and feeding to the bird, okay, so it's also a way of giving back. So wherever you are accepting them, the way they are existing, doing their own work, and I will do what I can do, is have a highest impact in your life as compared to any other remedies which is coming in your life. Okay. So any question or comment? So thanks a lot, everyone, for joining us today. So if not, we are getting over the time. We would not like to take any further time of yours. So we would like to go and close the session. We will be happy to take even questions outside this forum. You can send your question to ms@jyotish.com, or you can send your question to the arshajyotish.com. We will be happy. And also, I'm always happy to connect with people on the WhatsApp with your basic questions which you come across.